Father Janusz. He descended into hell, the mystery of helplessness. We may encounter stages in our lives in which we experience a state of mind that we would call powerlessness. Then we feel internally that we are unable to do anything. It is impossible to list all types of such powerlessness or all the causes of this powerlessness. These can be all kinds of conditions of a person that concern himself. For example, some physical disease for which all medical methods have been exhausted. Powerlessness may also concern mental life, for example depression, emotional disorders or addictions. The source of helplessness may also be an external situation, i.e. family, professional or economic situation. This can happen to a priest, a nun, a monk, a married couple, young people and elderly people. Where does this state of mind come from? If a person feels powerless, it means that he feels as if he has no strength, that is, internal power, that is, a lack of something, a lack of spiritual energy. To put it simply, it's as if a person was on their own, and at the same time they had no control over this situation, this problem, the source of this helplessness. He is no longer able to make decisions for himself. All this must come down to one source of spiritual problem. Man feels as if he were deprived of God and left to himself. And this, in turn, flows from the basic truth of Christianity, which is what happened in paradise, and what we call original sin. In paradise, man is filled with life, he is happy, he lives in the presence of God. When a person disobeys God, God, in a sense, abandons him, that is, the source of inner strength and power leaves him. And then life becomes, as it was for Adam, hard work, it becomes hardship, Genesis chapter 3 verse 17. We will not develop this topic here, we have only pointed to the basic source of this state of mind. But God of humanity in such a condition sent his Son Jesus Christ, who became a man, in order to walk the path of man's powerlessness. In the Breviary Liturgy of Holy Saturday there is a reading from the ancient homily for Holy and Holy Saturday. There is an image of Christ who goes into hell and says to Adam, "For you, I, your God, have become your son. For you, I, the Lord, took on the form of a servant. For you, I, who am above the heavens, have come to earth and descended into its depths. For you, man, I became powerless but free among the dead. Because of you, who left the Garden of Eden, I was betrayed to the Jews in the Garden of Olives and crucified in the garden." This text shows an important truth for our topic. Jesus descended into human powerlessness, like into our human hell, to tell each of us that this grave of our powerlessness is also his secret. It seems that too little is said about the mystery of Holy Saturday. We understand quite well the mysteries of Maundy Thursday, Good Friday and, of course, the night of resurrection, as if we did not understand that this Holy Saturday of Jesus' stay in the depths of Sheol is also a very important mystery of man's salvation, also at the level of what we are talking about here, i.e. in the spiritual aspect. Helplessness. So let us return here to this basic question about the mystery of human powerlessness. And to better illustrate this, we will use the figure of Peter the Apostle, in whom we will mention two moments of helplessness. The first took place when Peter, after the Last Supper, during which he declared his readiness to die with Jesus, witnesses his imprisonment in the high priest's courtyard. Of course, we all know the scene when Jesus is denied 3 times. Peter is unable to overcome his own fear, as if he were not himself when he denies that he knows Jesus Christ. And we know how it ends. Peter cried bitterly, Mount 26, 69-75. The classic symptom of helplessness is crying, and the thoughts that accompany these tears are of 2 types. On the one hand, it is the conviction that God has abandoned me, just as he abandoned Peter, who lost his master Jesus Christ, whom he had previously confessed to be the Son of God, Mount 16:16. On the other hand, he is aware that he lost, denied, turned out to be a weak person, and did not overcome his fear. We know what happened after Jesus' resurrection and what is described in the 21st chapter of the Gospel according to St. John. These, one might say, inconspicuous sentences mean a lot. Simon says to the 6 disciples who are with him, "I am going fishing," and they did not answer him. "We also go with you." And further, "So they went out and got into boat, but they caught nothing that night." John chapter 21 verses 1 to 3. Firstly, they returned to their old life with a sense of defeat, which is signified by empty nets, just like when they were called, Luke chapter 5 verse 5. These fruitless catches are a picture of the barrenness of life without God. This was the life of Adam and Eve after their expulsion from paradise. But in this fragment of the Gospel of John there is the second moment of helplessness that we wanted to talk about here. Jesus appears to them and they catch an abundant catch, just as they did when Peter was called. After this second miracle, the famous dialogue of love takes place between Jesus and Peter. Jesus asks Simon 3 times about his love for him. John chapter 21 verses 15 to 17. After the third question it says, "Peter was sad because he said to him the third time, 'Do you love me?' Jn 21:17. These 3 questions from Jesus about love were torment for Peter, because he really loved him and at the same time he felt a huge burden of his own helplessness, of which he had very clear evidence because he had denied him. This is a state in which at the same time in our soul there is a desire for God's love and our powerlessness, along with the awareness of what causes this helplessness in us. In this case, the fear that Peter had in him. But this last answer from Peter to Jesus' question says a lot about the mystery of powerlessness. Peter replies, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jn 21:17. We are coming to the climax of what we would like to say here, and it is not easy to understand. First, we propose here what we would call the two-self theory. On the one hand there is my I, and on the other hand there is my I, which comes from God. When, during the Last Supper, Peter declares that he will never deny Jesus and will die with him, he bases his entire life on his egocentrism, on his ego. He is his own source of power. However, in this third response to Jesus' questions about love, his I is already in Jesus. I, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. That is, his ego knows is already in God's I. Here, on the plane of the human I, the mystery of the name of God, whose name is Yahweh, I am, is reflected. A man who believes in God does not lose his identity, i.e. his ego, and does not disappear into the fog. His true identity is in God. However, he does not lose the conviction that he is powerless on his own. This declaration by Peter does not mean that he feels strong. He only says that the love of Jesus is in him and he does not declare that he will follow him to death. At the same time, his proud I has already died inside him and has transformed into the belief that he cannot do anything on his own, that he is powerless. And only then did Jesus decide that he was truly ready to die for him. Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were younger, you girded yourself and went wherever you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and another will gird you and lead you where you do not want to go. He said this to indicate by what death he would glorify God. Jn 21, 18-19. These last words are intriguing, as they mean that Peter is to die a martyr's death, which he does not want. This is precisely this powerlessness. A person follows the path of Jesus Christ, i.e. the path of his life's calling, in the belief that he is unable to fulfill it if he only counts on his own strength. It is God who gives the grace to fulfill our mission in life. Only a powerless person is able to live by grace. And here we come to another great truth of spiritual life. Without recognizing one's own helplessness, there will never be spiritual progress. If a person does not recognize his powerlessness due to some internal problem, addiction or whatever, there will never be a turning point in life towards healing, because just recognizing his powerlessness is half the healing. Each acceptance of one's helplessness is not really the beginning of what we would call paschal faith. Without experiencing our own helplessness, we will never become Christians, because the deepest mystery of Christianity is the Paschal Triduum and, as we have mentioned, the stage between death and resurrection is the descent into hell, i.e. the mystery of the grave of Jesus Christ. Reaching the source of one's own helplessness is the grace of meeting face to face with the risen Jesus. It is also the source of true inner transformation and the beginning of a completely new life. And finally, let's talk about this rather obvious question. Placing such a strong emphasis on the need to experience helplessness, a doubt arises. Where is the place for our human effort and participation in healing? This participation is first admitting that we cannot cope with something, but it is not enough. In this helplessness, we still need to turn to God's love, that is, we need to trust God's mercy, that God is able to completely free me and transform me. The next condition is to close the gates, that is, to end everything that caused this helplessness. We can call it generally faithfulness to God. Powerlessness does not deprive us of free will. We do not lose our own self when we rely on God. This is well illustrated by the comparison of two figures from the Gospel: Judas, who betrayed Jesus, and Peter, who denied him. They both have free will. Judas chooses suicide and Peter remains faithful to Jesus. This choice of Peter, in the context of what we are talking about here, is a choice of powerlessness. And this place and this grave of mine, the place of my greatest failure in life, paradoxically becomes the place of my greatest victory. And this is the true Passover of life. This is the true experience of the Easter mysteries.